The night he burned his guitar, Jimi wasn't just destroying an instrument. He was settling scores with his own past. At the Monterey Pop Festival stage, in front of thousands of eyes, as that Fender Stratocaster burned in flames, nobody knew that behind this performance lay a story of years of pain and liberation. That hot June evening of 1967. Backstage, Jimi held his trembling guitar in his hands. "Can you do this?" he asked himself. Just a few months earlier, he was playing in London's small clubs. Now he stood at the gates of America's biggest music festival. But his inner voice spoke again. "You're not good enough. You never will be." When he grew up as a child in Seattle's poor neighborhoods, he didn't have a real guitar. He would dream with a single-stringed stick. While his father drank, he would sit alone in his room, moving his fingers as if there were strings. Other kids would laugh at him. But Jimi knew. He was aware of the talent within himself. It just hadn't emerged yet. When he joined the army, he never let go of his guitar. In the military barracks, he would play quietly during night watches. One day, his commander heard him. "Soldier, what the hell is this?" he shouted. Jimi didn't answer, just kept playing. That's when he realized he could give up everything for music, even his military career. After leaving the army, the real struggle began. Nashville, Memphis, New York. He went door to door everywhere. "You play too differently," they said. "Be more traditional," they said. "You hold the guitar upside down, you're doing it wrong," they said. But Jimi knew that what was wrong was actually different and right. Because he was left-handed, he held the guitar upside down and had strung it in reverse, creating his own style. For years, he played in small bars backing R&B groups. He was the backing guitarist for Little Richard, Ike, and Tina Turner, the Isley Brothers. Every night he played the same notes, the same riffs. But the scream inside him couldn't be suppressed. He wanted to hear his own voice. He wanted to create his own music. One night in 1966, he was playing at Café Wah in Greenwich Village, New York. The audience was small, nobody was listening. But there was a man sitting in the corner, Chas Chandler, former bassist of the Animals. When Jimi took the stage, Chas's mouth dropped open. "Who is this guy?" he asked those around him. Nobody knew. But Chas knew that night he had discovered the most important talent of his life. "Come to London," said Chas. "I'll make you a star." Jimi laughed. How many people had said the same words? How many times had he been disappointed? But the determination in Chas's eyes was different. "Okay," said Jimi. "One more chance." London transformed him. When British musicians heard him play, they were shocked. Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Pete Townshend, they all came to watch him. "This guy is from another planet," they said. Jimi smiled. Maybe he was. Maybe he was bringing music from that planet. Their first album, Are You Experienced, was a bombshell. But what was truly shocking was what Jimi did in the studio. Engineers watched in amazement. When they said feedback can't be used, Jimi made feedback part of the music. When they said the wah-wah pedal is too extreme, Jimi turned it into his signature sound. When they said distortion can't be this much, Jimi rewrote the language of rock music. The night he found the Purple Haze riff, he stayed in the studio until morning. Engineer Eddie Kramer remembered that moment. Jimi's fingers were dancing on the strings. Then suddenly he stopped. "Hear this," he said, and he played that legendary riff. The room vibrated. I vibrated. Music history vibrated. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Because that night in Monterey, Jimi wasn't just going to give a performance. We were about to witness a manifesto, a ritual, a rebirth. Before going on stage, he sat in the dressing room, looking at his guitar, that Stratocaster he'd carried with him for years. How many nights had they spent together? How many tears had he shed over that guitar? "Tonight will be different," he whispered to the guitar. "Tonight will be free." When he stepped on stage, the crowd went wild. But Jimi was calm. There was a peace inside him. He knew what he was about to do was crazy. He knew everyone would be shocked. But he had to do it. He had to burn his past, all the rejections, all the "you're playing it wrong" comments. When he played the first chord, time stopped. His fingers moved so fast on the strings that the eye couldn't see. He played the guitar from behind. He played it with his teeth. He played it from behind his head. The audience had never seen anything like this. This wasn't just music. This was pure, unfiltered creativity. When he started playing Wild Thing, the energy peaked. Jimi was running all over the stage, throwing his guitar in the air and catching it, climbing on top of the amplifier. And then that moment came. He knelt down, put his guitar on the ground, took out his lighter from his pocket. The crowd didn't understand at first. Then Jimi reached the lighter toward the guitar strings. First a small flame, then it grew. The guitar was engulfed in flames. The audience screamed, some in fear, some in admiration. But Jimi just watched. As the guitar burned, his past burned with it. All the pain, all the rejections, all the "you're not good enough" words, everything was turning to ash. But right at this point, everything changed. Because that burning guitar wasn't just a performance. It was Jimi Hendrix's moment of liberation. That night, by setting his guitar on fire, he told the world, "I won't conform to your rules. I'll draw my own path, and you'll either come with me or stay on the sidelines." After the performance, he sat in the dressing room. His hands were burned. It hurt. But there was a smile on his face. Chaz came in. "Have you lost your mind?" he said. "Do you know how much that guitar cost?" Jimi laughed. "It was priceless. That's why I burned it." After that night, everything changed. Jimi Hendrix was no longer just a guitarist. He was a visionary, a revolutionary, a genius pushing the boundaries of music. But success brought darkness with it. As he became famous, he shut himself in the studio. He would record at 3 a.m., work until morning. The engineers would get tired, but Jimi wouldn't. "There's something more," he'd say. "I hear the sound, but I haven't captured it yet." He'd work on the same riff for hours. He'd change amplifier settings thousands of times. He was chasing perfection. While recording the Electric Ladyland album, he nearly went crazy. More than 30 musicians, countless studio sessions, thousands of hours of recording. "This album will change music history," he said. "But it's not ready yet." The record company was pressuring him. "Finish the damn album," they said. "We're losing money." But Jimi wasn't listening. He was risking everything for his vision. Problems started within the group, too. Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding were tired of Jimi's perfectionism. "He's making us work 18 hours a day," they complained. But Jimi couldn't understand. For him, music was life. It was like breathing. How could he stop? The 1969 Woodstock performance became legendary. In front of 400,000 people, as the festival was ending, Jimi took the stage. And he did the impossible. He played the American national anthem on electric guitar. But this wasn't an ordinary rendition. He played it with feedback, distortion, pushing all the boundaries of guitar techniques. The anthem seemed to give voice to the Vietnam War, social chaos, generational conflict. Some called it disrespectful. "You can't do this to the national anthem," they said. But Jimi knew he had to do exactly that. Music wasn't just beautiful sounds. Music was telling the truth, showing the pain, rebelling. You won't believe it, but after that performance, Jimi broke down. When he returned to his hotel, he collapsed in a corner. "Did they understand?" he asked his manager, Michael Jeffrey. "Understand what?" said Jeffrey. "That my guitar was speaking," Jimi whispered. "That my guitar was saying everything I couldn't say." At the peak of fame, he was at the bottom of loneliness. He'd wake up in hotel rooms in the morning and forget where he was. Which city, which country, which concert. Everything started looking the same. Stage, applause, dressing room, hotel, stage again. The cycle never ended. One of the last nights he spent in the studio, August 1970, London, Electric Lady Studios. He was working on a new album. Engineer Eddie Kramer remembers, Jimi was very tired, but that light was still in his eyes. "I need to record one more thing," he said. "One last piece." I said, "Jimi, it's 4 a.m. Go sleep." But he insisted. The piece they recorded that night was never finished. Jimi died a few weeks later. He was only 27 years old. His guitar stood in the bedroom, silently. No one could make it sing anymore. Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. Because Jimi's story doesn't end with his death. He showed us how powerful music can be. He proved that a guitar isn't just an instrument, but a voice, a soul, a revolution. Today, every guitarist carries Jimi's influence. They study the techniques he used. They use his pedals. They try to be like him. But nobody can be like him. Because Jimi wasn't just technique. He was a person who gave his entire soul to music. The guitar he burned in Monterey isn't in a museum collection. They took its ashes, preserved them. Some say that's nonsense, but Jimi would be understood. That guitar wasn't just an object. It was physical proof of Jimi's moment of liberation. Those countless nights spent in studios didn't go to waste. Every recording, every experiment, every wrong sound changed the foundations of rock music. Every distortion we hear today, every feedback use, every creative guitar effect is the legacy of Jimi's bold experiments. That child in that poor neighborhood in Seattle, dreaming with a single-stringed stick, changed the world. When his father said, "Give up that nonsense," he resisted. When the military commander yelled, he resisted. When record companies said, "Be more traditional," he resisted. Every time he resisted. And every time he made his own voice heard. What would you do? If everyone told you that you were doing it wrong, would you believe in your own vision? Jimi believed. And that belief made him immortal. What you're seeing now is nothing, because Jimi's real legacy isn't just his music. He left a message for all artists. Be original. Be brave. Break the rules. Burn your guitar if necessary. But never, never silence your voice. The moments when he played the guitar with his teeth weren't just for show. He was showing that music could be made not just with fingers, but with the whole body, the whole soul. The moments when he climbed on the amplifier weren't just performance. He was showing that music had no physical boundaries, that music could be in the air, in fire, everywhere. During the Electric Ladyland album recording sessions, he'd look at the engineers with wild eyes. "Turn that knob," he'd say. "No, not like that. More. More." The engineers would say, "The equipment will get damaged." "Good," Jimi would say. "Let it get damaged. Music is more important." And today, when we listen to those recordings, we understand. Every cracked sound, every distorted note, every feedback scream was intentional. Jimi wasn't making mistakes. He was creating a new musical language. And that language is spoken all over the world today. What about that morning at Woodstock? Thousands of people had gone home. The festival was over. Everyone was tired. Only a few thousand people remained. But for Jimi, this didn't matter. Whether 400,000 people listened or 4,000 people, it made no difference. He would play his music. He would make his guitar speak. When he played the national anthem, the sounds coming from his guitar resembled bomb explosions, jet sounds, screams, chaos. It was all in the music. "This is Vietnam," the guitar said. "This is your war. Do you hear it? This blood, these tears, this pain." Disrespectful. No. This was truth in its purest form. You haven't seen his most extraordinary moment yet. Because Jimi's greatest achievement isn't the fame he gained while alive. It's what he created after his death. Every new generation of guitarists discovers Jimi. And every time they're shocked. Did this guy play this in the 1960s? They ask. These sounds that seem modern even today, were they created 60 years ago? Yes. Because Jimi was ahead of his time. He wasn't making music just for his own era. He was making music for the future, and the future proved him right. Remember his first days in London? When Chas Chandler brought him, nobody knew him. His first concert in a small club. The crowd was very small, but a man was sitting in the corner. Eric Clapton, the most famous guitarist of that era. When Jimi started playing, Clapton's cigarette fell from his hand. At the end of the concert, he came to the dressing room. "Who are you?" he asked. Jimi smiled. "A man trying to make the guitar speak," he said. That night, Clapton told a friend, "I can't play guitar anymore. That guy came and changed everything." Of course, Clapton continued playing. But Jimi's talent had shaken even the greatest guitarists. Pete Townshend's story is more interesting. The Who's crazy performances, smashing guitars, destroying the stage were famous, but after seeing Jimi, Pete said in an interview, "I was smashing the guitar because I couldn't play it. Jimi had set the guitar on fire because he was making it speak. That's more powerful." And that's when it was understood. What Jimi burned wasn't just a guitar. It was burning the old music, the old rules, and the symbolic death of the "this is how it's done" mentality. And from the ashes, something new was being born. The Jimi Hendrix experience, the experience of new music. You won't believe it, but Jimi never told anyone his biggest fear. Even after becoming famous, his stomach would turn before every concert. "What if I can't do it?" he'd ask himself. "What if I can't make the guitar speak this time?" Mitch Mitchell, the drummer, remembers. He'd sweat backstage, he'd tremble. Then he'd go on stage and turn into a god. I still don't understand how he did it. Maybe that was exactly where his power was. Because he didn't think he was perfect, he tried to do better every time. He was never satisfied. Every concert was a step toward a better one. Every recording was an effort to find the sound that hadn't been captured yet. When he opened Electric Lady Studios, he had created the place of his dreams. "This is my temple," he said. "This will be the place where music is born." He had designed it so that each room had its own unique acoustics. Every corner was optimized for a different sound. "Music isn't just hearing," he'd say. "Music is feeling. In this studio, you'll feel the music." But when the studio was finished, he was very tired. Financial problems had grown. The record company wanted their debts. Concert organizers demanded tours. Everyone wanted a piece of him. And Jimi started taking from himself to give to everyone. His last concert, Fehmarn Island, Germany. September 6th, 1970. A stormy, rainy night. Equipment broken, sound quality poor. Jimi sick, tired. But he played. He did the only thing he knew. He made music. That night, nobody knew that this would be the last day the world would see Jimi Hendrix alive. 12 days later, he died in a hotel room in London. Official statement: barbiturate poisoning, choking on his own vomit. But the truth was more complex. Fatigue, pressure, sleep deprivation, the heavy price of success. It all came together and took a genius from us at age 27. His funeral was held in Seattle. Thousands attended. But the most striking moment was what they placed on his grave. Guitars, record players, dozens of letters. A child placed a drawing he had made. In the picture, Jimi was playing guitar above the clouds. He had written underneath, "Now he's giving concerts in heaven." Maybe he was. Maybe Jimi's music was too big for earthly boundaries. Maybe we lost him because he didn't belong to us. He belonged to music. Today, young guitarists begin their musical journeys by playing the Purple Haze riff. Just as Jimi started with that single-stringed stick. The cycle continues. The influence passes from generation to generation, and each new generation rediscovers Jimi. The photo of that burning guitar in Monterey became one of the most iconic images of rock music, on museum posters, album covers, tattoos, everywhere. But the photo is just time frozen in a moment. The real story is on the path leading to that moment. From that child in Seattle to the man who changed the world. Could you have done it? Could you have sacrificed everything for music? Jimi did, and that sacrifice made him immortal. Now, the ashes of that guitar still stand somewhere, concrete proof of the power of music. And every time a young person listens to Voodoo Child for the first time, those ashes come alive again. Jimi takes the stage again. The guitar speaks again. The story doesn't end here, because Jimi Hendrix's story will never end. He lives in every hand that touches a guitar. He exists in every bold musical experiment. He's present in every artist who resists when told this isn't how it's done. The night he burned his guitar wasn't just a performance. It was a manifesto. "I'm here," he was saying. "I'm different, and this difference is my strength." And the world listened. Finally, remember this. Jimi's real achievement isn't gold records, awards, fame. His real achievement is changing the language of music, proving that a guitar can speak, and showing all future generations, you can do it too. You can make your voice heard too. You can burn your guitar too, metaphorically. Just be brave. Just be original. Just be yourself. But what's truly shocking is the unfinished pieces Jimi recorded in the studio during his final days. On the tapes found after his death, there were melodies never heard before. When engineer Eddie Kramer listened to those tapes, he couldn't hold back his tears. He was just at the beginning. Those pieces Jimi left unfinished teach us something. An artist's work is never done. Every completed work is a new beginning. That's why he chose to stay up all night in the studio every night. Mitch Mitchell remembers, Jimi wouldn't sleep because there was always music in his head. "Do you hear that?" he'd say. I wouldn't hear anything, but he heard it. Maybe that's what genius meant. Hearing what others don't hear and sacrificing everything to share it with the world. What about the small moments? Those ordinary moments nobody talks about? For example, between concerts, he'd sit in his hotel, watching television, news programs, war footage, images coming from Vietnam. His face would fall. "Can music change this?" he'd ask his manager, Michael Jeffrey. "I don't know," Jeffrey would say, "but it's worth trying." And Jimi tried. With every guitar note, with every performance, he gave his message of peace. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because Jimi's influence didn't stay limited to music. He started a cultural movement. Hairstyle, clothing style, stage performance, studio techniques. Everything changed. If you went to a rock concert in the late 1960s, someone on stage was definitely imitating Jimi, but imitation could never surpass the original. In the following years, guitarists tried to get the pedals Jimi used, the amplifiers, even the same models of his guitars. Maybe with the same equipment I can get the same sound, they thought. But none succeeded, because Jimi's power wasn't in the equipment, it was in his fingers. In his soul, in his passion for music. Stevie Ray Vaughan, the most famous of the 1980s blues rock guitarists, said in an interview, "Jimi is like a god to me, but I'm not trying to imitate him. I'm trying to learn from him. There's a difference." And Stevie was right. What you learn from Jimi is more about attitude than technique. It's the approach to music. It's the courage to push boundaries. In the 1990s, the pioneers of the grunge movement cited Jimi as their inspiration. Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder, Jerry Cantrell, they all came from Seattle, just like Jimi. His spirit is still in Seattle, they said. The sound of Jimi's guitar is in the city's air. Maybe it was. Maybe Seattle was a city special to music, and Jimi was its brightest star. Wait a minute. Don't miss this detail. Jimi's father, James, Al Hendrix, didn't stay silent for years after his son's death. He didn't do interviews. He avoided the media. But in the late 1990s, he agreed to speak for a documentary. And what he said broke hearts. "I didn't believe in him," he said. "When he was little, I tried to take the guitar from his hands. I said, 'This isn't your future.' I was wrong. He was the future itself." A father's regret. The sadness he felt for not understanding a genius. But Al finally understood how special his son was. He would visit Jimmy's grave in Seattle. He would always bring a guitar pick with him. "I know, son. Now you're being heard," he'd say. "Now you're speaking, and I'm finally listening." You won't believe it, but Jimmy's influence went beyond music. NASA named a space shuttle Hendrix. An asteroid took his name. Art galleries exhibited paintings inspired by his performances. Poets wrote poems inspired by his music. Jimi wasn't just a musician anymore. He was a cultural icon. When the Jimi Hendrix Museum opened in Seattle, 10,000 people waited in line on the first day. Inside, his guitars, costumes, notes written in his handwriting were displayed. People were crying. Young people, old people, people of all ages. Because Jimi had told something to everyone. And that message continued to echo years later. In one room of the museum, the video recording of the fire performance in Monterey played continuously. People would stay in front of that screen for hours. They'd watch that burning guitar, that wild look, that moment of liberation. And everyone would make their own interpretation. Some would see art, some rebellion, some poetry, some madness. But everyone would see something, because Jimi's performance was multi-layered. A new meaning would be discovered with each viewing. What about his children? It was claimed that Jimi had biological children. DNA tests were done. Some came out positive. But his real children were his musical legacy. Every young guitarist was Jimi's child. Every brave musician was his grandchild. The family tree was growing not with blood ties, but with musical bonds. In 2020, on the 78th anniversary of Jimi's birth, a worldwide event was held. Guitarists from 50 different countries simultaneously played Purple Haze, an online concert. Millions watched, and at that moment, everyone understood. Jimi never died. He's reborn every time a note is played. In Seattle, his grave is still one of the most visited musician graves. People leave flowers. They leave guitar picks. They write letters. "Thank you, Jimi," they say. "You gave me courage. You inspired me. You showed me the power of music." And here the story forms a cycle. The journey that started in that poor neighborhood in Seattle ends in Seattle again. But does it really end? No. Because the influence continues, the music continues, the dream continues. Jimi once said, "After death, my name will be forgotten, but my music will remain." He was wrong. Both remained. His name and his music, hand in hand, forever. And maybe one day, they'll tell your story too. As the person who changed music, who broke the rules, who made the guitar speak. Just like Jimi Hendrix. The guitar burned, but the music didn't go out, and it never will, because some fires burn forever, and Jimi Hendrix was such a fire, still burning, still warming, still illuminating, in every young guitarist's dream, in every brave musician's heart, in every soul seeking freedom. Do you hear it too? The sound of that guitar? It's still playing, still speaking, still screaming. And you? What will you say? What will your guitar speak?